If you're living alone and you tell people you're fine, but something in you still tightens at night, listen, loneliness isn't about proximity. It's about connection that actually lands. Connection that makes you feel seen, known, safe in your own skin. You can be in a house full of people and still feel invisible. You can be married and feel like you're talking to a wall. You can sit at a table with family and still feel completely alone inside your own head. And you can live alone and feel completely intact. So before we go any further, and before I share 6 simple things that make living alone feel grounded, I want you to be honest with yourself. Are you lonely? Or are you just quiet? Alone isn't the problem. Most people are just using the wrong word, because alone is physical. It's just the fact that nobody's in the room with you. But lonely, that's psychological. Think about a crowded party, music, laughter, 100 conversations bouncing around, you're smiling, nodding, doing the polite little dance, and then you go home and it hits you. Not exhaustion from being social, exhaustion from not being real. Because proximity isn't connection, noise isn't intimacy. Now picture something totally different. A quiet apartment, a warm lamp, a book that actually holds your attention, tea in your favorite cup. Maybe you hear rain or a distant car outside, and for once you're not bracing for something. You're not waiting for someone to text. You're not trying to prove you're okay. You're just okay. That's why I need you to remember this. Loneliness isn't no people. Loneliness is no meaningful connection. A meaningful connection doesn't require a crowd. Sometimes it's one person you talk to once a week who truly gets you. Sometimes it's a neighbor you can be honest with. Sometimes it starts with you finally being a safe place for yourself. Here's the twist that changes everything. Some people don't feel lonely when they're alone. They feel lonely when they're with the wrong people, people who make them shrink, people they have to perform for, people who only love the useful version of them. So let me ask you something, and don't answer too fast. When do you feel more like yourself, when you're alone, or when you're around others? And if the answer is alone, that doesn't mean you're broken. It might mean you're finally telling the truth about what connection really is. Tip number 2, build a routine. Give your day a shape. When you live with other people, your day borrows its shape from them. Meal times, noise, conversations, someone else's schedule tugging you forward. But when you live alone, no one hands you structure. And if you don't design it, the hours don't feel peaceful. They feel like they're leaking. This is why I tell people something that sounds almost insulting at first. Sometimes what you call lonely is actually unstructured, because the nervous system doesn't only fear isolation, it fears drift. It fears that floating feeling where nothing anchors you, so your mind starts inventing problems to chew on. Routine is not a boring checklist. It's nervous system stability. It's your body learning, we're safe. The day has edges, life is still held. And it can be ridiculously simple. One woman told me, every morning, same cup, same tea, same chair by the window. 20 minutes watching birds like it's a tiny private ceremony. Nothing dramatic, but her day had a spine. And here's the part people don't expect. Routine is also how you stop living on autopilot from your old roles. After her husband died, she realized she wasn't even hungry at 5:30. She was trained to be hungry at 5:30 and didn't eat, because that's when he wanted dinner. So she changed it, not out of rebellion, out of truth. That's what routine gives you when you live alone. The right to find your actual rhythm. Not the rhythm you performed for decades to keep the household moving, not what the world expects. So if you're listening and you feel that heavy sameness in your days, don't panic and go chase people. Start smaller. Pick one anchor in the morning and one anchor at night. An easy walk after breakfast, a playlist while you tidy one surface, a candle after dinner, to signal we're done for today. A book in bed instead of scrolling like your phone is emotional life support. Because when your day has a shape, your mind stops turning silence into a threat. And I want you to comment this. Keep it simple. What's one tiny ritual you already have? Coffee, a walk, a playlist, a chair by the window? What is it? When you live alone, the world can get so quiet that your mind starts talking too loud. And if you don't give that mind a direction, it will create one. It'll replay old conversations. It'll scan your past for proof you're failing. It'll turn a peaceful evening into an echo chamber. That's why tip number 3 matters more than people realize. Have something that needs you without draining you. Not a person who calls to unload, not a relationship that takes and takes. Something gentle, something alive, something that quietly requires you to show up. For Eleanor, it was her cat. And I love this detail because it's honest. She has opinions, she has standards. She expects breakfast at the same time. She will stare you into responsibility. And somehow, that's exactly the medicine, because it creates a simple truth in your day. I matter to something. And before you roll your eyes, this is not sentimental. It's biological. A nervous system that has a reason to get up tends to spiral less. A mind with a small mission has less room for imaginary disasters. It doesn't have to be a pet. It can be plants that punish you with drooping leaves if you disappear for too long, a small garden, feeding birds on the balcony, even a tiny habit like putting fresh water out every morning and watching who comes. Elena kept a bird list, date, time, species, how many. People laugh at that until they understand what it really is. Attention training, a way of saying, my life is not just waiting, my life is noticing. And notice the phrase I keep repeating, without draining you, because some of you are so used to being needed in painful ways that you confuse depletion with purpose. That's not purpose, that's reenactment. Purpose, at this stage, should feel like a soft tether, a small responsibility that gives your day meaning, not a weight that steals your breath. Here's your check-in. If the thing that needs you leaves you resentful, exhausted, or anxious, it's not a healthy attachment, it's a quiet leak. But if it leaves you more present, more grounded, more awake in your own life, keep it. When you live alone, people assume the solution is always more people, more lunch dates, more group chats, more noise. But tip number 4 is the opposite. Be picky about people, not because you're bitter, because your social energy is not unlimited anymore, and wasting it is a form of self-harm. A crowded calendar can still be an empty life if you're always performing inside it. If you come home from a fun night out and your chest feels tight, your stomach feels heavy, your mind starts replaying what you said, that wasn't connection, that was labor. And after a certain age, your nervous system stops tolerating social labor the way it used to. So when Elena says, I have 3 friends, that's it. She's not confessing a weakness. She's describing a boundary. 3 people who actually know her. 3 people who don't make her explain her temperament like it's a flaw. That's the whole point. Loneliness isn't fixed by proximity. It's fixed by being seen. You can sit at a table with 10 people and still feel invisible. You can have 1 honest phone call a week and feel emotionally fed for days, because real connection doesn't drain you. It steadies you. And this is where many people get trapped. They keep saying yes to nice invitations out of guilt. They don't want to disappoint anyone. They don't want to seem antisocial. But listen, if your yes costs you peace, it's not generosity, it's self-abandonment. And in this chapter of life, you don't need more noise. You need more truth. So I want you to do something small but powerful. Look at your circle and ask, who do I feel safe being quiet around? Who do I feel safe being real around? Because that's your real community. When you live alone, There's a quiet trap that doesn't look like a trap. It looks like comfort. Your home becomes perfectly calibrated to you, your routines, your silence, your control. And slowly, without meaning to, you start living in a world that never interrupts you. And a life with no interruptions can start to feel like a life with no pulse, because surprise doesn't happen on the couch. Tip number 5 is simple, but it's the difference between solitude and stagnation. You have to go outside so life can surprise you, not to be social, not to prove you're doing life correctly, just to let the world touch you again, even if it's small. A walk at the same time every day and you start noticing tiny things, the neighbor's dog that always looks offended, the tree that changes week by week, the barista who remembers your order without making it a big deal. That's not community in the movie trailer sense. That's reality slowly saying, you're still part of this. When you don't go out, your mind becomes the loudest thing in the room. And the mind, left alone too long, loves to recycle old fears like they're new. So don't wait until you feel like it. Go out so you can feel something different. A bookstore where nobody expects you to talk. A park where you can be invisible in a good way. A cafe where you can sit with your tea and your thoughts without apologizing for being alone. You're not hunting for a moment. You're creating the conditions for one to find you. Because the best moments in a quiet life are rarely planned. They're stumbled into. If you want the real truth about living alone, here it is. Living alone doesn't create misery. It amplifies whatever relationship you already have with yourself. That's why some people call it freedom, and some people call it torture. Because when the house gets quiet, there's no audience to impress, no noise to hide behind, no one to blame for the mood in the room. It's just you. And if being with you feels tense, if your own thoughts feel like a bully, then of course solitude will hurt. Not because you're too alone, but because you don't feel safe inside your own company. Most people don't realize this. They think the problem is the empty chair. Sometimes the problem is the inner voice sitting in it. So tip number 6 is the biggest one. Actually like yourself. Start here. Stop treating your personality like a flaw. If you don't love parties, that doesn't mean you're missing out. If you enjoy slow mornings, books, early nights, your own rhythm, different isn't wrong. A lot of loneliness is just shame wearing a mask. But that's a belief, not a fact, and you can drop it. Here's one practice that changes everything. Keep tiny promises to yourself. Make your tea, take the walk, clean one corner, read 10 pages, water the plant, not to be productive, to build trust, because self-love isn't a feeling you wait for. It's a relationship you build through consistency. And now the line I want you to remember, because it's the difference between peace and pain. Sometimes you're not struggling because you're lonely. You're struggling because you think you should be lonely. The first problem needs connection. The second problem needs permission. So let me ask you gently, but honestly, what is one thing about you that you're done apologizing for? Drop it in the comments, and if you need a sentence to start, use this one. I give myself permission. Living alone doesn't mean something is missing. It means something has been revealed. It reveals what calms you, what drains you, what actually matters when there's no audience watching. If this season of your life feels quieter than you expected, that doesn't mean it's empty. It might mean the noise finally fell away so you could hear yourself. You don't need to perform to be worthy. You don't need to rush out of solitude to prove you're okay. Sometimes the most honest life is the quiet one. So if this video gave you permission to breathe a little easier, say it with me. Comment, I choose a quiet life. And tell me, just one number, which tip you're building first. Because choosing yourself isn't giving up on life, it's finally meeting it where you are.